Hi.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Nicholas. I am a product designer and manager alongside being a marketer at the LODE project. Now, LODE is a really, really exciting initiative to restore silver and gold to the monetary system through a payments platform powered by blockchain. Uh, Now, you've probably read a lot about Bitcoin recently in the news, and there's a lot of excitement in the blockchain space since the 2017 crypto boom. LODE specifically is focused on providing a comprehensive autonomous platform for headless banking that allows people to access stabilized money, universal currency from the tip of your fingers from your phone. We're active in over 100 different countries. We create our own digital currency, as I mentioned, the digital gold and silver known as the AGX, AUX coin. And today we have published on all major app stores an autonomous cryptocurrency wallet that allows people to send and spend instantly this digital currency, as well as access your favorite cryptocurrencies, USDC, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, and many, many more coming down the pipeline.
So there's
In
so
the
much there's so much that's happening around the Bitcoin. People are talking about it and hyping it up, and it's the thing that I have always thought about the Bitcoin that's strange a little bit is that it doesn't really have any real backing, right? It's just it seems a little bit, I don't want to use the word sketchy, but what you're trying to do is actually have real gold, real silver. So it's a
Yeah,
stable coin. You call it a stable. It's a stable, right?
yeah, absolutely. So it's true. Bitcoin is powered by it's the faith that people put into it rather than having an actual backing. It's this confidence in the technology itself. But at the same time, the money that you hold today isn't really backed by anything either. It's backed by debt. More or less, which is risky. This is why most currencies in the world suffer from inflation. Now, in developed nations, that inflation is pretty marginal, and we actually it's more of a boiling frog metaphor, if you've heard that one, where I think the United States dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power over the past 100 years. So, fiat currencies obviously aren't the solution. Bitcoin, again, it's prone to these wild swings because there's nothing inherently valuable backing it. So LODE has taken this concept of gold and silver, which is some of mankind's earliest forms of money. It's been around for thousands of years that we've used this as currency in our societies, and we're taking the same technology that Bitcoin is built on and applying it to these assets to make it functional money again for the modern era. And the project has been around for about 3 years now, and it's been a really exciting journey, and really excited to again be here with you today, Charbex. Um,
So when I've been hearing about Bitcoin, I think since 2011 or something like that, like a lot of people commenting. And when I had this thing where people could donate, they wanted to send me Bitcoins, and I
mhm.
was even trying out, but they got all lost on these hacked wallets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's been happening. So that's but I always thought that it would make sense if there were real assets. Like I was thinking Google should do like a coin that's backed on their shares or something like that, right? And it seems
right.
that Facebook is thinking about doing something. I don't know if they're going to back it on the Facebook stock or not. That there's all kinds of real assets that could be the basis, and silver and dollar is one of the more stable kind of things that you could consider, right?
Absolutely, they're inflation proof. So, again, these things have been used for thousands of years, and what a gram of silver could purchase you 100 years ago is, even better than what it could get you. Or sorry, the other way around. What you can get today is even better than what you could get, 100 years ago with a gram of silver. But if you take a look at your dollar, a can of soda that used to cost $1 is now, $2. It's now 150, and that's just going to continue to go up. So obviously, societies and people at large are beginning to look for alternatives. And that's where systems like ours come into play. Now, one of the other things you were talking about hacks and wallets. Now, blockchains are really, really secure in ways that traditional banking infrastructure is not. That's one of the major advantages of them. However, the reality is that you have to be the responsible person for your money. If you get your money stolen from a bank, a central bank or something like that, there's a certain level of insurance and confidence when an identity theft occurs that you can get your money back. But blockchains require you to take full ownership of your responsibility. So if somebody figures out your private key because you posted it in a chat somewhere, or if you lose it, I'm sure you've heard stories of people losing their private keys and then, you know, throwing out the computer with the Bitcoin on it, and then they can't access it, and then Bitcoin blows up, and, you know, they missed their shot at being a millionaire. That's one of the risks of using this new technology. Is it's much more secure, but it requires greater responsibility for you to manage. But the benefit of this is that you disrupt traditional power hierarchies and legacy systems within banking and finance, because there's no more gatekeeping. You lock out this gatekeeping. So, for example, the Wall Street bets situation with Robinhood traders, as I'm sure you've heard about this, it's been all over the news recently. You know, Robinhood, of course, shuts down trading of GME and says, oh, retail investors can only get 100. With Bitcoin and blockchain technology, that kind of issue doesn't happen anymore unless you're going to a centralized entity, which is where you get traditional exchanges like Binance and Coinbase coming into play. And we can talk a little bit more about those, but I'll toss the ball back over to you because I did just throw a lot of information your way.
So maybe we can join in Dom and Luca. Hi. Hey
guys.
How are you?
Hey.
So Dom, maybe you have some points you'd like to say about what you think is going to happen here with the LODE.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody does. But I think, you know, rather than looking into the future and trying to figure out how we're going to change the trend, let's focus on what has never changed before. And the reality is, as Nicholas mentioned, is that in the history of the world, of humanity, no fiat currency has ever survived. So if we believe that the US dollar, the euro, or any other currency will survive what's happening today, that's probably one of the biggest fallacies we can fall for. And I think that's one of the major reasons why you see a rapid rally in cryptocurrencies today, because people tend to trust their peers more than trust their central governments.
So there's a lot of talk of all these cryptocurrencies, but let's say maybe there's a big economic crisis that might happen. Some people are talking about that. Some economists are warning that usually there's always a crisis, and it's been a long time since the last one. And every time there's a crisis, the silver and the gold is one of the things that kind of survives the crisis, right? So is this another good reason to think about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's unequivocal in times of financial stress. People flock to what they call safe haven assets, and gold and silver are, again, consistently one of these things that they go to. With the introduction of cryptocurrencies, there's a little bit more diversity in the portfolios, but with traditional cryptocurrencies, you're at risk of pump and dumps. You know, people intentionally manipulating the price, and then all of a sudden it's dropping again because of the inherent value behind gold and silver. It's a much safer position to take. And, you know, even after those financial crises, gold and silver have remained consistent, which is why it is recommended that these assets are part of everyone's portfolio. Now, because these metals are scarce, usually you can pay a massive premium when you are going to go to a physical bullion dealer to get your hands on some gold and silver. But in the situation of LODE, what we've been able to do by tokenizing this gold and silver for individuals to hold via the blockchain and via their mobile wallets is they can access real gold, real silver, real inflation-proof assets for a fraction of what it costs in the retail market, which is pretty incredible. So not only are we making these assets liquid, so you can go to a Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee using gold and silver again. We're also making it so people around the world can access it no matter their level of income. So it's just one more justification as to why solutions like this are so needed right now, because you can look at any number of countries in the world and inflation is becoming a very, very real problem. You know, people like to point to Venezuela and Latin American countries, but, you know, even in the United States, we're looking at another 1.9 trillion about to come into circulation, I think, maybe the number, something to that effect. Like, that's going to impact the value of the money that you hold in your bank account today. And so it's time to make a switch. It's time to start looking at what alternatives are out there to create stability for yourself. Because
I mean,
I believe the only way out to do
yeah,
this.
so, like for sure, digital currencies are the future. But the question is how it's going to be and when it's going to be. Like the central banks are also talking about they want to do some central bank controlled digital currencies that are going to come out eventually, right? But I guess it's not going to be just one system. Maybe the wallets can support all these different things that are going to come out.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it's important, you know, like governments still need to operate. I'm a big Star Trek lover. I believe one day we're going to reach a fairly utopian society, but governments still need to, run the books and having, a blockchain government asset is okay. That's part of the process. That's part of the transition to this new technology, but it's still the same thing with a different coat of paint. It's still the same fiat currency. It's just on a blockchain, which is why you may need to pay your taxes in AGX, or sorry, yeah, one day you'll pay your taxes in AGX. Why you may need to pay your taxes in a government currency on the blockchain. That doesn't mean that you should have to hold your wealth in that currency in the meantime. You have the ability to swap back and forth between these assets in a way that suits you. You're not locked into those government currencies.
Nick, can you touch upon what I would call like the democratization effect of LODE, and how LODE is intends to bring its token to the masses, and how it differentiates itself from traditional cryptocurrencies as we've come to know them?
Yeah, I mean, the project is intentionally built to over time become more and more distributed in terms of its governance, right? We want this project is founded very much on the principle of for the people by the people. In its early days, we got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and organize in a more traditional manner. But as the project continues to grow, we introduce more solutions and mechanisms until the point where the community is entirely governing this thing. And that makes it very, very unique compared to a lot of competitors out there, which have, the sole initiative of just being a for-profit corporation. And again, because LODE is not just a cryptocurrency platform, what we're building is, and this is another thing that differentiates us from our competitors, is we're building an entire ecosystem, everything from payments terminals to payments processing, to e-commerce plugins and so on. Everything.
Even a debit card that's going to work everywhere. That's what I understand, right?
Exactly. That we just released our first one in the United States, but it's going to go beyond that. We're going to make it so that you can load any credit card that you already own with your AGX and your AGX, with your digital gold and your digital silver.
How does that work? Is it just like any Visa, MasterCard is just going to be able to access the funds that you have somehow instantly, or?
Yeah,
really?
We're working on we're working on a lot of exciting initiatives like that are going to give you the comfort that you have right now with your existing banking system, but with digital gold and silver as the foundation, so that you can always have the confidence that your money is much more secure. And as I mentioned before, autonomous. We can't lock you out of your money. We are facilitators. We're not oligarchs. And you'll see this being this topic come more into trend, as well as situations like Wall Street bets continue to happen, and large institutional monies sort of go after retail investors, because for the past 100 years they've enjoyed this gatekeeping over the system, and solutions like LODE are part of how we democratize that, as Dom put it, and make it more accessible for people everywhere. So hopefully I'm addressing the questions you're asking there, Dom.
Yeah, I think can you run us by the average layperson, like your Starbucks person is currently standing in line, cash or credit card in hand. Yep. How are we going to disintermediate that process? How is LODE stepping into that process and making it as seamless from a transactional perspective? Where does a person go first and foremost in order to become a LODE client? What is the process of getting registered on the platform? And then how do they physically use the digital gold and silver for everyday transactions?
Absolutely. So The first thing you are going to want to do is head over to LODE.1 and go through a basic account registration process. It's fairly quick, pretty standard for most people as you experience when you register. And then immediately you're going to want to download the LODEpay mobile wallet from the App Store. And this is going to do one of two things. By registering an LODE account, you're basically you're setting up yourself so we know you within the system, and giving you access to our assets. And then that crypto wallet that you download is how you actually are able to send and spend and use those assets functionally out in the world. And we do have a KYC process if you're interested in some of our investment assets, the LODE token, which is how you become an equity or a virtual equity and stakeholder in the system. And KYC stands for Know Your Clients. It's just making sure that there are no bad actors, that we're not supporting terrorists.
So there's no anonymous use of this, right?
Well, we have taken a very considerable amount of effort in becoming regulated and compliant. Our goal is not to be the enemy of governments out there. We want to work with regulators and with countries to provide a system and help them with this transition, right? And at the same time, still provide people that autonomy that they're looking for with their money. So if I can just wrap up on what Dom was talking about before, once you have your mobile wallet, it's as easy as, using your credit card to buy the AGX and AUX. You can buy with cryptocurrencies as well. It's very smooth and seamless from within the mobile wallet experience. And then it's as easy as applying for a credit card, and you can actually load your AGX and AUX onto that credit card and spend it anywhere where credit cards are accepted. Now, in the future, we will be providing our own payments processing terminals and be working aggressively to bring merchants on board in the system. And so rather than having to use a credit card, you'll be able to just walk up to the payments terminal and use it just like you would with Apple Pay. Scan a QR code or just tap with your phone, and off to the races you go.
You might save 2 or 3%, like what's it called, credit card processing fees if you were able to do it directly, right?
Again, this is one of the great benefits of the LODE system and cryptocurrencies at large is cutting down on the fees that you see in our traditional fiat banking system. Because we use a really fantastic blockchain as our sort of foundation that LODE is built on, the Syscoin blockchain, we're able to provide payments processing for AGX and AUX for what is effectively nothing. I'm talking borderline close to zero. A fraction of a penny is what it costs you to process these transactions. And compare that to credit card processing, where you're paying anywhere from 3 to 9%. It's a no-brainer for businesses. We're helping businesses everywhere, save money and do better business.
As I understand, I've been watching a few of your videos on your YouTube channel and an interview you did. So somebody with a bunch of silver, for example, minimum 100 ounces, as I understand, can send it into a vault, and you partner with some vault companies. Yeah, and they're like in the US or in different places around the world.
So we have 8 different vaults around the world. And what you're talking about here is the LODE token itself. So we've spoken at great length now about digital gold and digital silver, digital AGX, which is backed by 1 gram of silver, and digital gold, AUX, which is 1 milligram of gold. But there is the third asset, the virtual equity, we like to call it, and that is the LODE token. So one of the most popular questions we always get asked is, where does all this silver and gold come from? And it comes from the community. Again, this platform was built by the people for the people, and they do that by contributing their, what we like to call, idle metals. So it's buried out in your backyard, it's collecting dust in your sock drawer, it's not doing anything for you. We have went out to the community and we said, we would like you to contribute that gold, that silver, into one of our 8 vaults, whichever works best for you, and in exchange we'll give you LODE tokens. Now, what we do with that gold and silver is we turn it into the AGX and the AUX. So in exchange for purchasing the LODE tokens, we take this gold and silver, and it becomes the foundation for this stabilized money. And how you benefit is, as a LODE token holder, is you receive micro-payouts every 52 days for making that contribution in the form of AGX. So as people buy, conduct commerce and trade and send and spend, you are receiving a dividend essentially in the form of accumulating more silver. And that's the real benefit of the LODE token, because you're also entitled to any a percentage of any profit distributions that the LODE project does as a byproduct. Be that because the LODE token is essentially an equity asset. So these three assets comprise of the assets that we presently distribute on the LODE platform. But again, we also do provide support for the top cryptocurrencies out there, because we don't want to pigeonhole people. We want people to build portfolios that are best suited for their lives. So
if I understand it correctly, they put the silver or the gold in the vault, and then they get the token, but they don't get do they also get the AUX or AGX coins, or?
No. So you're purchasing a bond with your gold and silver, and that bond yields a dividend, and that dividend is paid out in digital gold and silver. So you'll accumulate that gold and silver, and the bond itself, the LODE token, may appreciate over time.
So the bond is is that affected by the value of the silver or the gold that you put in, or?
No, it's closer to more of a traditional stock bond type situation. The gold and silver itself are, of course, backed. Every single gram, every AGX, every AUX is backed. That's in circulation. So those are immediately attached to the gold and silver. However, if the gold and silver market goes through a roaring boom, it would likely impact the LODE token in a positive manner. And we've had independent agencies, third parties, review, investment firms review the LODE token, and they, I don't want to put any prices out there. Nobody's got a magic crystal ball, but they've projected some very positive expectations for the token and for the platform. So, there are many advantages to being an equity stakeholder in the system, being essentially an owner of the system, as well as actually holding the assets designed for trading commerce, right?
Yeah, on that note, Nick, one question I think that would maybe be helpful for the people listening in. If you compare today the state of LODE compared to traditional cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, etc., why would you say it's a good time for the first movers to take a position in LODE today, in light of what you guys are about to do?
The best metaphor I could say is I wish we had all invested in Apple before the iPhone. As soon as the iPhone hit the market, it exploded, and we've spent the past 3 years really doing the legwork to do this in an efficient and regulated and compliant manner. And now we are on the cusp of bringing this to a global market, and it is absolutely going to explode. Some of the partners like yourself and the institutions that we are now collaborating with are going to put this on the same level as the Bitcoins, as the Ethereums of the world. And you don't want to miss out on an opportunity like that. I really genuinely feel like opportunities like that come along once in a blue moon.
And how much of that opportunity is motivated by the fact that this is an asset-backed currency versus a smoke and mirrors currency, for lack of a better term?
I would say a significant amount is motivated by that. Again, people are looking for stability in a time of disruption, right? People are looking for alternatives. They don't want smoke and mirrors anymore. They don't want to, go to bed and not know, what their value or what their wealth is going to be when they wake up in the morning. It's a pretty simple concept to grasp. And I think that LODE, there's nothing really else out there that matches the level of forethought that's been put into this project and making it a comprehensive system. There are other gold and silver projects out there, but they're trading them as purely speculative assets as opposed to a means by which for people can conduct business and live their lives.
So is the idea to come back to, let's say, a pre-1973 Bretton Woods type of world where we actually could typically physically walk to the bank, tender our dollar or Canadian dollar, and actually get the equivalent in gold or silver?
I think there is definitely a solid element of that. During those times, there was definitely a much better handle on inflation, but I don't think you can put the cat back in the bag, so to speak. We now live in a much more diverse economy where Bitcoin and Ethereum and we're not the only players on the block. I think it's a yes. We do want people to be able to walk into a partner, a LODE partner or distributor, and be able to reclaim their physical silver. They can do that today directly with us. If they hold AGX and AUX, they can ask for a physical redemption. That's one of the great advantages of it. But it's about providing people the means to govern their wealth how they see fit, whether that's in Bitcoin or gold and silver, and being able to move your wealth between whatever assets you want as fluidly as you possibly can.
So given the fact that the value of the currency itself is largely driven by supply and demand, where do you foresee that demand coming from first and foremost? Obviously, there will be some speculation, I would assume, but how are you going to stimulate and motivate the key driver, which is the transactional aspect of the currency, and making sure that it gets widely adopted in interstate commerce, online commerce, etc.?
Yeah, well, we have already fantastic partners that are going out today and engaging with merchants and getting them to understand the benefits of using this system. Presently, what we're really focusing on in the Q2 of 2021 are these merchant services, and making it easy for merchants to not just do the traditional credit card processing that they already do, but immediately convert that balance into digital gold and digital silver, so that they can conduct trade and commerce like instantaneously, instant settlements without waiting for those having delays on their capital that they experience in traditional systems. And again, as we talked about earlier, payments processing by accepting AGX and AUX is a fraction of a penny of what it would cost a merchant to process a transaction. So, it's a two-sided market. You need to have merchants that are adopting the system, and you need to have consumers. And so we're attacking this from a two-pronged approach. The LODEpay mobile wallet experience that is available today out on the market for people. That is what for people like me who are perhaps not business owners, and on the other side of that, we have very quickly coming up here our merchant services experience, where the merchant can have a full ecosystem to conduct their trade and commerce in these assets and convert back out to their fiat currencies or to their Bitcoins as they see fit.
Can I ask? As a stable coin, there's the real gold, the real silver in the vault. So people can bring. Let's say I bring 100 ounces of silver. I'm not sure if it's like $2,000 or $3,000, right?
Yeah.
The value. But I only get tokens. So with those tokens, I can't get the silver back out, or then the users will buy those directly from you also.
Yeah, so essentially over time, as I mentioned, there are micro payouts that happen every 52 days. Every 52 days, you're going to get AGX distributed into your account based on the sale of AGX and AUX out in the world. So by holding LODE tokens, you are going to accumulate that silver back eventually. The other alternative is once LODE is available for trade on a secondary market, and we've already seen huge increases in transactions back and forth for LODE tokens. You can sell those tokens yourself and recuperate your fiat capital that way if you so choose. So there are options for people to get out of LODE if they so see fit. But you're purchasing a bond for a precious metals backed system and are paid a dividend in that gold and silver, but it itself is not the gold and silver.
Let's say a country like Iceland or Switzerland or something like that is interested in trying this out, like in a big way, and they might have a vault with lots of gold and stuff. Do they? Can they start paying their government employees with these AGX and AUX, or
Absolutely.
how does it start? How does the whole thing start? It's not enough just to have the silver and the gold, and then you can start paying people, or where?
Yeah, so we would obviously, if something as large as a government comes into play, we might have to think a little outside of the box of what we do for the retail. But largely, the concept is the same. In order for us to tokenize the assets and put it on a blockchain and give it that that and turn that asset into something liquid, something that is, trackable and secure, and all in order to tokenize it and get the full advantage of blockchain technology. They would have to input the gold into one of our vaults so we could catalog it and convert it into those assets. And then depending on what we would arrange with them, we would distribute the AGX and AUX to them so that they could begin paying their employees. It's as simple as that. But very likely what would happen is they would probably see the value in a system like this and want to take advantage of the LODE token and being a stakeholder in the system. And so they would probably take a percentage in AGX and AUX and a percentage in LODE tokens. But there's lots of avenues for governments to collaborate. Payroll systems is another thing that we're working on, so that people will be able to, whether you're Amazon, whether you're an incubator, or whether you're a mom and pop shop down the road, you'll be able to pay your employees and staff in this AGX and AUX as well.
So let's say I want to buy some AGX. I go, let's say, on your website, or it could be on the app, and I buy 100 ounces of silver. AGX, right? What's the kind of like transaction fees? Like, how much more than the actual value of silver am I paying to get those? You know what I mean?
Well, there's an interesting question in that. There's if you're a silver stacker or a precious metals holder, there's a long understood notion that the metals markets as they exist today are presently manipulated. The spot price of what silver and gold are is not what you can physically go to a store and buy gold and silver for. The premiums above them are pretty considerable. Now, what we've done is we've built a pricing oracle that allows us to take a look at what these retailers are doing around the world and determine the true value of a price of silver, what you can actually acquire, a gram of silver for. And that's where we, at the moment, base our pricing around. Over time, as the system becomes bigger and mass volume comes to the platform, we're going to have the privilege of being able to continue to reduce those fees until eventually, the market is entirely self-determining, which will happen when, exchanges come online and when, again, that mass volume comes on. So presently, much like in the retail market, when you purchase, depending on how much you purchase, will impact the premium that you pay on it. The more you buy, the more affordable this becomes. When you're buying just one, the premium is a little bit higher. However, if you're buying 100 ounces, you're going to be paying very, very close to what you would consider your traditional spot price.
So if I bought 100 ounces, let's say, and I wanted to trade it back to silver, let's say, that would be possible, right? I just trade the AGX and get them out of the vault.
Yep.
But that's a complicated infrastructure to set this whole thing up. And do you have full insurance, like 100%, no matter what happens? Like, let's say somebody comes and steals, opens the vault and steals what's inside. Is it fully backed by insurance and everything?
Yeah. So, in a real life situation, it would be very unlikely that would ever happen. But the gold and silver in our vaults is insured. You are secured, and that's one of the benefits as well. If someone were to ever hack your account, we would have greater control than most cryptocurrency projects out there, because our assets are actually the gold and silver itself. It's not just a token that's floating off in the ether. Of course, the reality is that human error will always be an issue, but when it comes to being insured and secured, the assets within the LODE project are
so that's part of the fee, I guess. Because there are some costs in doing all this. Like you want reliability, you want security, safety, right? That's one of the important things to have this work. Maybe Luca, do you have also maybe some idea, something you'd like to say? Hey, maybe you can introduce yourself also.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to security, it's always one of the concerns of the users. And we ourselves would like to, since we are basically working mostly on user acquisition here at Unicorn, that's how we position ourselves, always with the user in mind. That's a very good question you'd ask Tim about the securities you give the users, not for their own mistakes, but if any hazard eventually happens, for even if it's very rare.
There is. I checked online. There's like 2.7 billion people in the world who either don't have a bank account or have a really crappy bank account, and this is like one of the huge important things about the cryptocurrencies, right? Or maybe not the crypto, but the digital currency for sure need to solve this huge problem where they don't have access. Like so many farmers don't have access to currency, and maybe let's talk about that Latin America and this other project you're doing with the gamers, right? Maybe they need to be able to have some kind of way to get some payment in 1 second with a small fee.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've spoken about this project with Nicolas already. We want to put it through on formation for sure, and we have already recognized, as you said, the emerging markets usually have problems with their bank system and money, and this is one of the target areas we are going to focus on when it comes to user acquisition.
Yeah, one of the major themes we'll have at our event here in October, the Startup Super Cup, is actually global wealth inequality. And to your point, what you're referring to are, the 2.7 billion people who are unbanked. That's obviously a major contributor to this wealth inequality effect. We'll have a premier speaker, Therese Fessler from the University of St. Gallen, chief economist, that will be speaking on that topic. And actually what Therese is doing, she's dedicating her life to resolving that problem, because 20% of the world is holding 100% of all of the equities. So what you have is you have a discrepancy between the consumers on the one side and the equity holders on the other, where people are driving Teslas, they're buying the product, or they're buying Apple iPhones, but they're not actually equity holders. They don't hold shares in the company. They've missed out on this massive wealth creation that we've experienced. This is something that maybe Nick can touch upon in terms of potentially getting LODE into the equity markets and allowing, for example, it might be a nice compounding effect of having people use LODE to trade on Robinhood and to become equity holders in Tesla and Apple.
Absolutely. I mean, all things in good time, but I do want to touch upon the 2.7 billion unbanked people as well, and just reiterate that, this, when we say for the people, by the people, we're not talking in one country, in one place. We're talking about a global community of people that really need assets like this. And that's a huge, huge part of what drives this project is getting these stabilized assets in this more efficient monetary system into the hands of those people, which is why we're so pumped to be working with people like Dom and like Lucas to make this happen. And when it comes to getting listed on places like Robinhood and getting, helping people get easier access to these equities, those are business relationships that we know that as the platform continues to grow, it will become more palatable for them as time goes on, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, as the saying goes, but in just the 1 month that 2021 has already been, that we've already been through, we've seen enormous excitement from institutions about collaborating with the project and finding ways to adopt and utilize this system that we've created. So we're very, very excited about what the future holds, both for bringing people to the speculative market and having that real world application for the unbanked and the people who need it most.
So what you were saying, Dom, is it a little bit in this direction? What I was thinking also, like kind of like 10 years ago, that there could be a currency that allows people to trade in maybe real estate or in shares of Google, or in all kinds of other things. Is that like a platform? What you have right here with LODE, is this something that could potentially work with other things than silver and gold?
Well, think about it, obviously, because you have this big divide between the haves and the have-nots. You have this big divide. You have, for example, 2 billion people today that would love to transact online, but because they're unbanked, they can't. They don't have a credit card. They don't have a PayPal account. In most countries, not most countries, but some countries, PayPal is still not allowed. Transaction fees are extremely high. So there are more and more people joining the middle class that could actually afford certain products and services. They could also afford to buy a few shares of their favorite stock. but are disintermediated. They don't have a chance of doing so as a result of not having the payment vehicle to buy what they want to buy. That's why I'm personally extremely excited about LODE, and maybe Nick can touch upon that as well, by maybe taking a concrete example of how, for example, a Shopify website that's selling, I don't know, fine art or rugs in Pakistan could potentially leverage LODE as a payment mechanism, allowing people from around the world to buy their wares.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're looking forward to unveiling these products Q2 2021. But essentially, for the concrete example you used of a Shopify store, it's as easy as going to the App Store in there and plugging it in, right, and downloading the app, and immediately your e-commerce store will be connected to the LODE's payments platform, and from there you'll be able to take payment however you want. You want that in AGX? Do you want it in fiat? Would you rather process credit cards? It's up to you. But we can. The idea behind this payment system is to create the ability to immediately settle to AGX or AUX. So even if somebody is paying you via a fiat currency of their nation or via a credit card, it will immediately settle to AGX. So you don't need to worry about your money being held in an inflationary asset. Right.
Before Richard Nixon, it was the gold that was the basis for the US dollar, right? One thing I'm wondering is when I check online, the global economy is $38 trillion or something like that. Gold, there's 10 trillion. Silver, I think, is a couple trillion or something like that. So maybe there is this issue that, I mean, this is maybe far in the future, but if there isn't enough gold and silver to handle all this stuff, maybe there needs to be that's just adding other like forms of stable coins. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean there are other forms of stable coins out there, and reality is that gold and silver are commodities as well. Silver is one of the most industrial metals there is, and the scarcity is a real consideration to take into effect. But ultimately, what would end up happening is that the value of these gold and silver assets would skyrocket, right? Much like in the same way that Bitcoin has skyrocketed over this past year, right? So I see that scarcity is actually a positive thing, and for people who have the opportunity to come in early, this is just the beginning of the ride up, so to speak. So
the speculation is not so much happening in the AGX and AUX, is more in the LODE token, if I understand correctly, right? There might be an increase in value in that aspect, or is it stable? Like no matter what happens, it's just going to follow the silver and gold kind of.
Yeah, no, LODE is definitely more of a speculative asset. The LODE token is designed for people who want to come in on building this system and bringing this system to life and play a foundation role in creating the new monetary system of the future. And it will fluctuate up and down based on how the project ultimately does as a platform, just like the same way Amazon or Tesla does, right? But the gold and silver will always be the gold and silver, and that will always be stabilized as it has been for thousands of years.
Can you talk a little bit about the company, like who's the founder? And I saw on the internet that you have a headquarters just right next to Switzerland, there in Liechtenstein. Is this because they have some laws that say crypto, go ahead, do whatever you want, or?
Yeah, well, back in 2017 when the project started, there was a group of libertarians and free thinkers that really believed in bringing these assets, making these assets liquid again, making gold and silver liquid again, and that's really where the project got its foundations. We're headquartered in Liechtenstein, yes, because it's got a very clear blockchain act that allows us to set the foundation for this project. But we are actually have, I believe, 7 different corporate entities that exist around the world that all fulfill different roles in bringing this ecosystem to life. Switzerland, our Switzerland corporation, which we do have as well, is there to act as the issuer for these assets we're in the process of incorporating a German institution to give us the legal coverage that we need to go out to European audiences in a big way. And similarly, we now have a United States corporation known as LPI, or Load Payments International, which will be responsible for building out the payments platform experience and bringing that side of the business to life, as well as helping us to be compliant in the United States and with the regulators in that region as well. So really, all the corporations that we have exist to either help us be compliant in a known region or to help us on a legalities level for the project and to make sure that we're covered, right?
So I saw on your website is 7,000 around users so thus far. But do you talk about like the founders? Like, are they famous? Like going around talking about it, or who's the is it a small team or?
Yeah, for sure. So LODE is built up of a series of service providers, right? It's not one monolithic institution that has come together. There is a steering committee. We have a business plan on the website, and is 4 people that act as our sort of helmsmen for the LODE project, and the steering committee are effectively our executive suite for the project. And I can give you a link here to the business plan if you'd like to.
Is it not the one that says community, right? Or but on the website, and then one thing that I was trying to understand also, like in terms of the security, and people can trust that the gold and silver is there. So there's a system of what you call auditing. Like,
of course, yes.
How do, who's the auditor? Is that like some kind of auditing company that everybody can trust and government can audit?
There are 4 major institutions that are considered A-class auditors that we have to go with in order to be compliant, and we will always be using one of those 4. I don't have the names of them off the top of my head, but it is so important for people to have the confidence that the silver and gold is actually there. And that we're not just saying that, right? And so we do conduct transparency reports on a regular basis, and we're looking forward to increasing the level of transparency for everybody. But we also do get that full blown independent audit, so that people can really have that trust and that confidence and that transparency that yes, the gold and silver are there.
All right, maybe Dom. Do you have some other ideas of stuff we should talk about?
Yeah, I'm not sure of it, but any ideas. But obviously, what's exciting to us is to be part of a project that's in its relative infancy, despite the fact there was a tremendous amount of work, obviously, that went into it. We certainly believe it's a project whose time has come. If you kind of like look at the competitive environment in the space, you see a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing at the same time. I think the ability of having this dual currency that has on one side a high probability of increase in value on the speculative side, the token itself, while at the same time having real world applicability, which really what I think we've been missing out on, even with Bitcoin. It's not fully integrated into e-commerce yet. It's starting to, but I do believe that one of the callings in life for LODE is its ability to be nimble in a marketplace that's shown to be relatively unflexible or a little bit rigid. And I look forward to the time where you have literally every e-commerce website that's LODE empowered, making it simple for both the merchant and the consumer to transact.
When I look at, I think it was more than 10 years ago, I saw some guy talk about Kenya and the M-Pesa, that I think it's called, right over there. And what I see on the internet is that there's a lot of grandmothers, and like everybody can just figure it out, and it's just like it needs to be easy. It's not just something for young guys to play around.
It's interesting,
with, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Africa. So, for example, the easiest way for those of you who have not been there yet is that you'll go to a gas station, the kid pops up with his moped, 12, 13-year-old, and he shows a short code on his feature phone. That short code gets redeemed for $3 worth of gasoline. He fills up and he drives off. Grandma does the same thing. And, very similar to what happened in Africa when they jumped straight from having no copper to mobile, right? So they bypassed, they leapfrogged the copper stage for telecommunications. In this sense, they've actually leapfrogging the entire banking system. They never had access to going straight to a cryptocurrency, which what M-Pesa is. M-Pesa is owned and operated by Safaricom, one of the largest mobile operators in Africa and Eastern Africa, above all, and is currently available in Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania.
And it's amazing that this has been pretty much 10 years before everybody else is like trying to get things started and rolling in the like one thing I'm wondering is stuff like UBI. The people are talking about UBI and all this crisis that's happening, and that the governments need to be able to give money very quickly to all the people. Digital currency is one of the reasons, I think, partly why the central banks are thinking about how to, get it on everybody's phone immediately, the money. Maybe also charities, like let's say a billionaire wants to give a bunch of money to people, but it's so complicated right now. But if there's a way for them to click on one button and everybody gets the money directly, this is maybe something that's going to be possible.
Look, I think from my perspective as a marketer, and actually as a person who has dealt with these types of friction points for 25 plus years, I think most definitely. So if you take, for example, take a look at the digital marketing space, where sometimes we are on the digital marketing side, our level 7 between the client and the actual entity that actually allocates the media dollars, and each intermediary doesn't do anything besides resell the service and taking 10 to 15% of the top. I mean, it's akin to corruption, right? So clearly, the easiest way to get rid of corruption is by disintermediating the intermediaries. And I think this is an idea, as Tony has commented, in that sense, where if you are a central government and you want to make sure that the money that you're allocating, your budgets that you're allocating towards any destination go from point A to point B without going through 5 or 6 middlemen, this is the way to go.
So this is the link you sent me with the, what is it? Is it like a presentation?
Yeah, so this is our business plan, and people can check this out by registering an account on LODE.1, and it sits right there in your dashboard for this to read. But from here, you're able to take a look at everything we've essentially been talking about today, as well as take a look at some of the institutions and some of the individuals that play key roles within the project. So you can learn a little bit about our leadership here. You can learn about the technology that we've used to build this platform and our forward-looking strategies, and how the project is really going to move forward into the future. So it's a great resource. Again, just by checking out LODE.1 and quickly signing up for an account, you can gain access to this document if you're interested about learning more in the project. And
what does the part in the Cayman Islands do, for example?
This is where one of our major vaulting corporations is. So I believe you're referring to the Interfix Corporation, and their responsibilities revolve around the vaulting and the management of the gold and silver. We do again have vaults in 8 different countries around the world. However, Interfix is the institution responsible for managing that.
So there it says something about how much silver is right now vaulted. Is that a lot? 580,000?
I mean, a lot really depends on your perspective. It's certainly a start.
Yeah.
Well over $7 million United States USD was initially raised through this gold and silver, and we're in the process of fundraising a lot more with institutions. And investors and people looking for an opportunity to really get in. I would say now is the time.
So basically, 1,300 people have put this amount of silver in there. And how much is this? Like a recent numbers and.
Yeah, so I mean, this business plan is somewhat of a living document. I believe this was last updated prior to the Christmas holiday season, so to speak. So we've done some significant fundraising since then, so those numbers are probably up. We've also grown in numbers as well. So but we do our best to make regular updates so that people are reading, of course, recent information. Same with the website as well. We are using a live feed to to give people full transparency and visibility into what the volume is in terms of users and the cost of acquiring AGX and AUX and all those important metrics and so on.
There's even some talk recently with all this GameStop stuff, with all the small traders revolting through Reddit and everything. There's even talk about, like a few days ago, they were boosting the silver, or there was talk that maybe they were. There's always a lot of talk when I watch these videos with, for example, Max Kaiser, who talks a lot about Bitcoin and stuff, but they always talk about the silver and the gold as like, this is something that, just because the governments are issuing so much fiat currency and the debts are huge. And
well, I mean, as I mentioned, earlier, this is really bringing, it's lifting the veil on the corruption that we see in traditional financial markets, and we were really excited because we think this whole experience with these traders is starting to disrupt the manipulation of the metals markets that has been a long-standing issue in the community. And really, this is exposing a whole new generation of people to gold and to silver, through what has happened with the Wall Street bets and Reddit sort of movement that's taking place right now. We personally have already seen the advantages of this movement. We've seen a big pump of new users over the past few days, and people are excited about learning about why gold and silver should be part of their portfolio and part of their wealth. So back to you.
Yeah, because I was watching these videos actually posted by the World Economic Forum, where all these representatives, like the one guy was from the Singapore, I think, central bank, the EU central bank. Like, everybody is pretty sure that the digital currency is definitely coming. They're even talking about the next couple of years, some of the countries are going to implement it. China, it seems, already has something going on. Like, there was a WeChat money and the Alipay. And I think China is doing their digital currency to kind of like puts, what do you call it? Like, I mean, I don't know if that's, I guess you talk about all this and so on. Like, it's definitely happening. The question is, how is it going to happen, and who's going to do it, and how soon, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember that we already have digital currency. You log online and you go to your bank account and you do your e-banking, and that's already a digital currency in of itself. So we're already halfway there. The implementation of blockchain technology just means that there is going to be a greater level of accountability and transparency within those currencies. It's a better cataloging and management of those currencies. And so I believe, 10, 20 years down the road, almost every country in the world will probably have its own cryptocurrency, and there will be a continued transition towards using blockchain technology and distributed ledger technology over the legacy systems that we use today, because there are efficiencies that it offers that traditional legacy systems do not. But again, as I brought up very early on in the show today, just because it's on a blockchain doesn't mean it's any better. It's still just a fiat currency. It's still the same broken record, just with a new face paint on it. And so if you, I would highly recommend people take a real hard look at how their fiat money has performed over the years. And it's time to begin looking at alternatives and consider switching to currencies like AGX, like AUX, like Bitcoin, that are alternatives that aren't controlled by a small board of shadowy figures or a small network of people that are going to act as gatekeepers. Again, while LODE in its infancy stages, may look very similar to a traditional corporation, it's designed to become more and more distributed as the community grows until it's entirely self-governed. And the project really is not about being a gatekeeper. It's about being a facilitator. It's about creating a platform that is autonomous and provides you easy access to the payments and economy and of the future.
There's a little bit talk of a bunch of countries adopting the US dollar as their what's it called, the dollarization of those countries, or what you call it like that. But
reserve currency.
Reserve
yeah,
currency.
reserve, right? But let's think of Africa, for example. They have a lot of the gold and silver, or maybe I don't know about the silver, but they have a lot of gold mines over there, like in the Congo or something like that. Maybe there is some kind of way that this would be a good kind of currency for them instead of the US dollar. And maybe the EU should jump into this occasion and say, hey, how can the EU kind of like boost this or something, like provide some kind of like people need to have a trust, next level of trust, like you're in the early days. I'm just thinking, try to think of the future.
Well, there's a lot of risk when you take a fiat currency on as your reserve currency. Dom rightly pointed out that all fiat currencies have failed, and I think we've seen a great deal of instability in the United States, which maybe should put some questions into people's mind about whether or not this, the USD is really the smartest long-term option for their country. And assets like gold and silver are not controlled by a Federal Reserve. Ultimately, they're just global assets that are that have a universal truth of value to them. They're collectively agreed upon as having inherent value, and people need need access to that kind of money, to that kind of stability, if we're truly going to have a currency that is going to succeed in the long run. And I would encourage countries to examine that. If the concern is like we want something that's branded for us, we have the ability to do metadata on the assets. We can develop or issue specific tokens that are clearly say this came out of this region or this country, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many ways that you can engage with this technology to create a better economy for your country that we welcome it. We encourage people to reach out to us if they want to find a solution, a way to make this work for their institution or for their country, and so on and so forth.
Do you think digital currencies are going to enable new kind of applications that are, or maybe improvements on things like interest, salary payments, or insurance, or mortgage, or all these kinds of things that are there? Like when people have bonds, then you get interest, but it's sometimes hard for them to get it, or maybe there's something in that direction.
I think to an extent they already have. We're already seeing the effects of new technologies and new applications coming out impacting interest rates. There are institutions out there that will give you 9% on your USDC, USDT, liquidity, being a liquidity provider, through things like Uniswap, and this whole movement of DeFi is really, really incredible. And again, it disrupts traditional power structures. It really, we spoke about wealth inequality a little bit earlier, and part of the reason this wealth inequality exists is because of all this gatekeeping that happens. Joe Average isn't able to get in on initial offerings of products a lot of the time because they only want to make it available to accredited investors, for example, right? But why should that be the case, and why should it be that you as an individual or as somebody who makes a middle class income, why shouldn't you be allowed to take advantage and participate in the wealth generation? It's just horribly corrupt and unfair. And so these technologies, whether it's through initial coin offerings or whether it's through the DeFi interests that we're now seeing, we're seeing greater exposure for the everyday person to solutions, the same solutions that that the ultra wealthy of the world have taken advantage of for generations. And I think that's a fantastic development. So
one thing I expect a lot of activity to be happening in this 2021 is the EU, the US, China, India. Everybody's going to figure out how to regulate all this crypto stuff, right? And I think it might hurt the cryptocurrencies that are facilitating illicit money laundering, selling of weird stuff, or anonymous payments and all this weird, and tax evasion. So as far as I understand, you have like know your customer kind of technology, right? You check every user that they're real, And does that help in that potential, if let's say the EU says this is very interesting, but how can we make sure people are not laundering money and they're paying taxes? Is this possible in the LODE?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a very important piece of the platform, and why we've taken the slow and steady approach versus, immediately going to bat and then getting regulated into oblivion, like we've seen with Libra, Facebook's platform, for example. We really do take the time to work with regulators and to provide a safe environment for everybody. Bad actors exist in today's world with existing systems, and blockchains can provide a great tool for greater transparency and making sure that people are being good actors in the system. And so, in order to take full advantage of the LODE ecosystem, you do need to go through KYC, and you do need to, make sure, prove to us that you're not, in fact, a bad faith individual. But it's a very, very painless process. It's not very invasive at all. And it's optional as well. If you want to dip your toes in and experience the system before, lunging, 100% in, you do have the ability to just open up an account and explore and use the wallet before gaining full access to the entire suite of tools that we can offer. But yeah, KYC and knowing your client is incredibly important.
So the knowing your client part of this could be, let's say, I keep coming with the idea of a government getting involved. Let's say Iceland is interested. They might get some kind of way of checking all the users and approving the way that it's implemented in the country or something like that.
Yeah, it's you're pretty close to how the process works. We partner with institutions that allow us to operate in a regulated fashion, and with corporations that perform these checks, and when necessary, and basically we manage through these partners the cataloging of the users as they come into the system. And so if there was ever a reason a government would want to audit us, we would have the ability to provide the information as necessary. But we're not ever going to sell your information. We're not trading information like you see on Facebook. The antitrust suits that have come forth with big technologies. We don't use it for anything even remotely close to that. It is purely there to make sure you are who you say you are, and that somebody isn't committing identity theft. Right? How awful would it be if you had somebody build you a whole LODE account based on your identity because your credit card or your banking information was hacked, and so that's why these checks are there. It's to not only protect the system, it's to protect you as the individual.
There are all kinds of other ways that a digital currency could be done without crypto, and it could be like on AWS or Google Cloud or something. But your argument is definitely that there is a reason why you want to decentralize where the money is, but there is this risk that people like their USB stick gets corrupted, or they forget the password, or they lose it, or they get stolen, and maybe maybe you could just host a copy on your Google Drive. What do you want to think about this direction?
So the reality is the human error is human error. It's almost impossible to remove the human equation entirely from that, but you can have redundancies in place that give you the same level of comfort that you experience with the existing system today. Blockchain technology is still just coming into its own. If you look at the mobile wallet experience from back in 2017, it was painful. It was brutal. Compare that to the LODEpay mobile wallet experience, and it's pretty seamless onboarding of that. And the thing is that what makes a blockchain so powerful is how it is decentralized. So Vitalik Buterin actually spoke about this years ago, and there's actually multiple kinds of decentralization, and I'm going to speak about two of them today. One is political decentralization, and the other one is actually like physical decentralization. So what I mean when I say this is, how many computers make up the system, how many different processors and hard drives are actually processing the blockchain, and then who's in control of it. So there could be a billion computers, but if they're all run by Microsoft, then the power again becomes centralized. And historically, and when it comes to political centralization, time and time again, we've seen that when power is consolidated to only a few group of people, this is when you see very autocratic, very dictatorship types of environments that are honestly very, very corrupt. So the more distributed the power becomes, the more democratized, the healthier society we generally see. And this logic again applies to monetary policy and to money. When only a few people are responsible for making all the decisions that impact everybody, the impacts of that are pretty colossal. Now, on the physical decentralization side of things, how many computers are making up the system, and this actually makes blockchain technology very, very secure, because, as you know, blockchain technologies are basically ledgers that are documented by and confirmed by multiple computers around the world, thousands of them. And in order for a hack to successfully, and I'm going to make it as simple as I possibly can for any neophytes listening today, but essentially, in order for a hack to successfully happen, they would have to simultaneously break into well over 51% of the computers processing the blockchain. So the more processors, the more miners, as they're called in the industry, there are for these blockchains, the more distributed it becomes and the safer it becomes. So, something like Bitcoin is almost impossible because of the sheer number and size of computers that are initiating and processing the transactions and participating in mining on the network.
But I did hear that, for example, China has more than 50% of mining, because they make these chips highly optimized to do the Bitcoin mining. And what if China decides to do some kind of weird stuff to all this Bitcoin stuff? They might decide. But so there's actually mining involved with the LODE?
So LODE is built on, is designed to be platform agnostic. We have our internal ledger for managing inventory, but then we issue our assets on public blockchains. Presently, we're listed on Syscoin for AGX and AUX, which is at its core a fork of the Bitcoin blockchain. And so we have about 40% of the same miners that Bitcoin presently has. Making it very, very decentralized. And to your comment about China, it is hypothetically possible that that eventually somebody could become so efficient that they would effectively have a 51% majority. But you got to remember that just because the miners are out of China does not necessarily mean that the Chinese government specifically controls all the miners. There are multiple businesses within China that do Bitcoin mining and processing. And the majority of processors may be in China, but that does not in fact mean that one monolithic institution controls it. That's an important distinguishing there.
Yeah, I mean, some people talk about the Chinese government controlling all the Chinese companies, but I'm not totally sure that's really happening. Hopefully not. But when you say decentralized, there's still the LODE, which is a centralized entity in this whole process. So it wouldn't make sense to host the whole thing on the AWS instance or something like that.
Well, if you hold it on AWS, you're a lot more vulnerable to the traditional kinds of hacking that you see in in the tech space today. So it's important to bear that in mind. That's one of the major reasons why that we're migrating away from the digital currency systems that we have with existing bank infrastructures. And to your point regarding LODE being centralized, again, like the system has to be built. And the way that LODE engages is it's not a monolith, right? It's a series of service providers coming together to achieve a mandate. That is what LODE is comprised of. And if you take an opportunity to take a read through the business plan, you'll see that there are many players that are helping to build this ecosystem, and this is to help create a more distributed platform for people. And when in terms of how it's governed in its early days, in its infancy, yes, it will resemble a little bit more of a centralized entity, but it has been designed so that as more people come onto the platform and it scales, it becomes more and more governed by the people, right? And that's the true vision, is that to have this thing operate autonomously, collectively, and not have, you know, a board of shadowy figures, so to speak, as the name, or as the euphemism.
There's so many cryptocurrencies. Are there any competitors doing something similar, or are you definitely defining yourself as a stable coin? I heard this called Tether and USDC, and they're like trying to get fixed on US dollars, but it's hard to, what's it called, check that it's real dollars behind it. Like, what do you call it? Audit, right? So how soon is the audit? How often does it get audit? Sorry, there's so many questions, but there's going to be an audit like every month. So how does it work?
Well, I mean, auditing is expensive. What we can do, and so we are getting in the habit of trying to do them annually, right? And as needed, as requested by any regulatory body that is necessary. But what we can do to increase transparency in the meantime is we can release vaulting reports with our vaulting partners, so that, you know, people can see from the institution that's actually vaulting the silver and gold that yes, it's there, and then we can have a larger independent audit on the annual basis. And this is, you know, we're trying to develop more technologies that will give people better visibility into that, but there does require a great deal of innovation there. So the idea is to, yes, try to provide people as much transparency as possible so that they can have that confidence that the gold and silver is actually there.
Are there any competitors trying to also back their cryptos with silver and gold, or they're not? Yeah. You're definitely unique in the world, what you're doing?
Well, I think there are definitely plenty of competitors for gold. I think silver is perhaps, we're a little more bleeding edge in that realm. There have been some players that have been in the gold space for a while now. But again, I think that the scope of what they're trying to do with these digital gold and silver assets is nowhere near as colossal as what we're attempting here with LODE. They're purely just tokenizing some gold in a in a speculative fashion, and it's just designed to be listed on an exchange, and people can treat it as a speculative asset, which is fine. You know, we firmly believe there's lots of room in the ocean for competition. It's healthy. It helps drive innovation. But I do firmly believe that we are unique in our vision and unique in our execution of how do we make this not just a tokenized commodity, but a true monetary system, for the people, by the people.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this. I hope my no-coiner questions were okay.
No, it was an absolute pleasure coming online to speak with you today. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity. And of course, Dom, it's always a pleasure to talk and converse with you. I really hope that that the audience listening in today was interested in the project. Would love to see you join us over at LODE.one. We have a really active and engaged and friendly community, and you can speak with me directly along with the thousands of other people that have already begun to make the switch to a better monetary system.
And there's a Telegram also, and I see you on Twitter. And Dom, maybe you can say a little bit about you think it's huge to like you have the Startup Super Cup that's coming in October. And there's going to be a lot of focus on doing solutions that are helping the next billions of people and financial, access for everybody and stuff like that.
Yeah, in this case, what Nick calls DeFi, decentralized finance, is definitely going to be a mainstay. It's also going to be one of the major themes at the Startup Super Cup, which will be held right here in Sarlat-la-Canéda, southwest of France, on October 1, 2, and 3 of 2021. You can go to startupsupercup.com. You will see LODE on the homepage as one of the exhibitors. Nick will be giving a keynote speech. He will also be part of several panels that revolve around DeFi, decentralized finance. So you get to meet him in person along with several members of the team. And I think that between now and then, we'll see LODE make some waves, both in the media and in terms of impact as an alternative currency.
Fintech is definitely one of the big sectors that maybe Europe can play a bigger part in the future, right? When you talk about looking for the next unicorn, and LODE is talking about having like offices in Switzerland, for example, and the opportunity is right there. Who's going to do the best digital currency? And there's a lot of innovation competition happening. and maybe this is the one that's going to be huge.
We definitely believe that LODE has a huge opportunity, a huge chance, to grab massive market share when it comes to democratizing the process and allowing everybody from every person, every walk of life, both on the buy and the sell side, to participate and as Nick mentioned earlier, not miss out. We're also in it for the greater good, and one of the core principles that we follow is this ability of technology to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and reducing global wealth inequality. And I think this is one major stepping stone towards helping us achieve that.
All right. So thanks a lot. Thanks everybody. Thanks Lucas.
Thanks guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thanks.